someone there could see how worried I was and anxious, and they said to me, Sasha, you're going to learn when you get to 4 and 5 star level, the horses are athletes, they're not your pet. Some of the top riders in the world, and every single one of them consistently tells you that it's bad more than it's good, and it doesn't suddenly, you don't go to the Olympics and then it gets easier. Like, it is, that is just what working with horses is. Have you forgotten how to introduce yourself? Are you okay?
Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. It's actually Wednesday. We're recording this on a Wednesday. I think that's the first time ever we've recorded on a Wednesday. How you doing, Rhi? Are you all right?
Oh, I'm good. I've had such a good day. Miri and I have had very different days.
Oh, so different. Go on, you go first.
So I had the day off today. I took the day off so that I could go for a show jumping lesson on Harley, and it was wonderful. I just didn't feel nervous at all. It was so lovely. He was great. He felt like really confident. And previously, up to now, like when we take him away from home, he kind of shrinks into himself a little bit. And so he feels like a very different horse, and it took a little bit of getting used to. And now actually we've figured out how to help, and he loves jumping and it's really fun. And he did great. And honestly, I've talked about the coaching I've done with Nikki, but I had a session with her earlier this week, and Nikki is the equestrian mindset coach, and I just can't overestimate how much I did not expect what has happened. Like, I fully thought that these one-to-one sessions were going to be her giving me tools and stuff, and I was going to go to events and I was going to, I don't know, repeat things to myself and like have structures in place that were going to help me not feel as nervous or reframe events. And it's not really been, I mean, yes, that is part of what she sometimes offers, but these one-to-one things, it feels like you're untangling just like this web that's like followed you around that you've created for your whole life. And in untangling a lot of those patterns, behaviors, beliefs, everything just gets easier. And like today, it wasn't even that I was like, oh, I'm going to reframe this in a positive way, which is what I've done previously. It was like, I just feel different. I just feel different. And it's easy.
Much more therapeutic than maybe you thought it was going to be. Like from a therapy, like therapy.
I know it is. And we talk about, childhood patterns and stuff that doesn't feel related to the horses. But of course, you don't have a personality transplant when you put your foot in the stirrup. You are the same person. And so that it's been kind of wild. Like some of the stuff has been like hard, but really good. I'll put her in the show notes because I do think she deserves a shout out. And I'm working with her as a sponsored rider. But my God, it has been incredible.
That's really cool. And like working on like, when people talk about like having a confidence crash, that kind of thing, that's the kind of stuff. Yeah. Amazing.
And burnout. She was, burnout was one that came up, and she was like, you are so on the road to that. Like that would 100% be coming down the track if you did not fix these patterns.
Wow.
Which wouldn't surprise you, I suppose, because you know me very well. But, she was like, just even thinking about why you do the things you do, like why are you... Anyway, I don't want to get into it because it's personal, but just interesting.
Well, maybe when you've kind of got further through it, you could find a way to like digest it a bit and then be able to maybe give us a bit more insight when it's a bit less raw. Because I think sometimes it's very difficult to talk about things when you're right in the middle of them because they feel kind of, you're in the messy middle. We need you not to be the messy middle. Great. Yeah. Well, I'm really pleased. Well done for doing that.
Thanks.
Because I know that isn't that easy. And I'm sure Harley is grateful for you working on your stuff.
He's on such good form, and it can't be just a coincidence.
It's not.
Yeah.
No coincidences here. Only mirrors. And I think it's really interesting because, like, what you will also be doing without realizing is regulating your nervous system around him.
That's a lot about what we talk about. Yeah.
And when we can become more regulated, we can then co-regulate with them. Whereas when we're very dysregulated or they're very dysregulated, it's very difficult then to kind of, for anybody to shift from that to down-regulate. I mean, I'm learning so much about this recently, and it's like the most interesting, most fascinating thing because actually, like, the goal isn't to jump big jumps or... to necessarily go to the Olympics, which is very relevant with our guest today, actually, to talk about, changing mindset and that kind of thing. But for me, like, the goal is like that regulated nervous system, that feeling joy, that feeling comfortable in your own skin, that sort of ease that
The
comes with
ease is
it.
that's it, I think.
That
It's just
word, isn't it?
it's not meant to feel hard. And I think
No.
what you don't realize, and actually I think I've been slightly unjustly smug because I hear you talk about regulating your nervous system, and I'm like, absolutely, that makes perfect sense. You know, Miri really struggles with X, Y, and Z. You know, it doesn't really apply to me because I'm like fine.
Hmm.
And then you start realizing these patterns that you have that are just making your life so hard. And you
Mm.
realize how much tension you're carrying in your body and how you're really disconnected from what your body's actually feeling. And then when you
Yeah.
start to change those, you're like, oh, it's not meant to feel that way. Like you were
Yeah.
saying, it's just, yeah. So now I
Mm.
feel like I should, you know, tap myself on the neck, on the wrist for being smug because, yeah,
No.
we all have a bit
But
of dysregulation, maybe.
well, definitely. And I think that a lot of the time, like the way our society encourages us to live is literally the opposite of how we were designed to live. Like
Yeah.
doing three things at the same time, being on the phone, driving your car, drinking a cup of coffee. Mm-mm. You should sit in your garden or an outdoor space, touch some grass, and
Literally.
drink a cup of coffee. And then you would drive your vehicle, and then you would have your phone call. Like those three things are obviously modern society relevant, but like the reality is like we shouldn't be able to do as many things as we do all at the same time.
Mm.
And the reason is we're doing all of them badly. You're not really drinking your cup of coffee. You're not really having a present phone call, you know? And it's like that. What can we do to slow down, and what can we do to re-regulate? And one of the things that I always give to people, which I really love, and I wonder if Nikki has discussed this, is doing the same things, but just doing them slowly
Oh, yeah. I think slowing down in general for sure
is one of the
is,
best ways to regulate
yeah.
your nervous system. And there's loads more. I've been working with Bev, the
Yeah.
somatic therapist, and I wonder if actually there would be a lot of crossover between what Bev and I have been
Yeah.
doing and what you and Nikki have been doing, and powerful stuff.
Maybe a bigger conversation. There's just a final note on that. There's a series that my partner and I've been watching on, I think it's on BBC. I'll put it in the show notes if I can find it, called Human. And it's
Hmm.
got a paleontologist. I think she's a paleontologist. And I only remember that because of Ross's job in Friends, because it's the same. But she's super engaging, and she's basically talking about how there were at one point in time different species of human and how they moved across the planet and how they then became one species of human. So we had like Homo sapiens, Neanderthals, etc. It's really fascinating. But under all of that, I just keep thinking about what you said, which is like, whoa, the way we've evolved is not for the world in which we live now and
Hmm.
the speed at which the world is evolving. So anyway, it's a very good series regardless, but particularly interesting if you're viewing it through that lens.
Because we have essentially not evolved.
Well, yeah,
We are
not in the at the speed anyway of
yeah,
everything else.
we couldn't possibly. We would all be robots. And we're not.
What
And
a
so that's
thought.
why we then feel things so differently or are affected. And so, like, I think I talk about this a lot on my Instagram, but like, if you don't feel like things are quite right, like you're saying, like, it's okay. Like, it's
Mm.
okay to feel dysregulated by busy environments, to not want to go and do the things with 100,000 people. Like, that's okay. You're allowed to want to live a slow life. Like, I
Mm.
love
This
living
I
a slow life. And I don't think I realized how much I needed it and how much was born in the wrong era, whatever they say. We're all born in the wrong era, like we're talking about, because
yeah.
we couldn't have evolved. We're not evolved. But like making bread, feeding my chickens in the garden, I'd love to grow vegetables. You know, that it's quite privileged, of course, you know, to have the time to do those things. And I understand this comes from a place of having built a life that now enables me to do that. But those are the things that our nervous system are drawn to, mine are drawn to, because it's what we were designed to do. Anyway,
Yeah.
unlike the day I've actually had.
Yeah, lots of chat today, I think, on changing of perspectives and changing your life. So this is going to be good. Talk about your
Mm.
day. What's happened?
So I started at 5:30. It's now
Intense.
5:30. So we've been going 12 hours. Solid.
Banker hours. You're on your banker
Yeah.
hours.
What does that mean?
I don't know. I just always think when people do like anything beyond like a 12-hour day, they're getting into like banker territory because bankers always talk about how they do like, oh, 16-hour day. Sorry if
Oh,
you're a
right.
banker and I just made a voice. Anyway,
running
carry
out.
on.
Yeah, I'm low on the spoons count at this point in the day. But no, I've just had a very busy day. I had some clients this morning, and then horses at home, and then the saddler was here, and then I came home and I had online teaching, and then I had my Zoom call with my hormone lady about my Dutch
yes.
test, and I'm
You've got the
not mad.
results.
Yes, I'm not mad. There actually is the things not right in my hormonal system.
Wow.
So yeah, super interesting. I will share because I don't actually think this is that private and a piece of information, but like my estrogen, it's the way my testosterone is turned into estrogen that isn't quite right. And yeah, it's all so there's multiple different things, and like my cortisol, the way my cortisol spiking goes. So like it's things like when you first wake up, your cortisol is at a certain a range. There's like a range of it. Mine is like right down at the bottom, right when I wake up, and then it goes really, really high, really quickly, and then it
I was going to
drops
say, because
down
you
again.
talk about waking up and feeling,
Yeah, like I've been struck by lightning. So, and that hasn't been happening actually so much recently, thank goodness. It's really horrid. But when I took the Dutch test, this was still happening. And that was about 6 weeks ago or so now. No, a month ago or so. Yeah, a month or so ago. So just really interesting, like just understanding things. And one thing that really stood out that I think was interesting is when, like on your days off, because it was a day off when I took the test, my body still does the pattern that it would do if I was working. So like just because it's a Saturday or a Sunday or whatever, it doesn't mean that suddenly my cortisol behaves itself and is at a baseline. And I think that was quite
And is that like normal? Is it normal that people's cortisol doesn't behave the same on weekdays and weekends?
I'm pretty sure that it's kind of like your body learns a pattern and you'd have to change that pattern over time a lot. So your routine is relatively similar all the time and your habits are the same and you're eating in the right way and all of those things are consistent. That is what would change your cortisol spiking, for example, because it's like your body learns how to live in a certain way, and then even when you have a day off, it doesn't just suddenly go back to normal, is what I'm trying to say. So like,
yes, that makes sense. Your body doesn't have a day off.
No, exactly. And so actually we have to look at really having properly inherent routines or like really good routines for ourselves. And you know how you see like influencers, right? Like wellness influencers being like, you should do this, you shouldn't go on your phone, you should eat before you should do this and sleep at this certain time and this what it's actually true. Unfortunately, those people are right. And it does actually make a difference. You're like all of these little things, like not having too much blue light before you go to sleep can actually make a difference. Not just the fact that you might sleep badly that night, but the fact that your sleep isn't what it needs to be means that your body isn't doing its melatonin cortisol shift so much. So then it means that you basically end up staying stuck in this bad pattern. So it's like lots of small things to change all the time that will be the thing. Yeah. So like for me, I have made a lot of these changes already. Like I'm really very mindful of a lot of different things. Like you'd call me really boring, probably.
I don't think I would.
Maybe not you personally, but I just mean like I would be classed as boring if
right.
Because I am very consistent about time I go to bed. I don't drink caffeine. I'm like quite like, holistic, woo, whatever you want to call it. But I think it's because I know that's what my body needs, and the peace, ease that I feel when I do those things is so much better. So anyway, that was probably the most garbled explanation. I've only just got off the call, so I'm not surprised that it wasn't totally succinct. But maybe I'll share more on Instagram at some point when I have digested it all a bit more. But super interesting.
That's really cool. I love that. Love it. Weather has been a key topic of conversation across the podcast in the last few weeks, and this feels like a great moment to talk about our season sponsor, White Griffin. White Griffin recently worked with British dressage and British show jumping to create a sustainability strategy to work from 2024 to 2030. And when it comes to equestrianism in the environment, there were 4 key areas that they were focused on. The first is considering extreme weather guidance in order to minimise cancellations and ensure the health and safety of riders, horses and the public at events. The second was equine specialists working to provide guidance on the impact of climate change on equine welfare, including the effects of unseasonable temperatures and the risk of the spread of vector-borne diseases in the UK. The third was considering that our supply chain is threatened by extreme weather, soil degradation and water shortages, as feed and bedding are entirely reliant on healthy and resilient farming techniques. This is something we've been talking a lot about in the last few podcasts, particularly last week's land management one. And finally, water. Water is a really precious resource to equestrianism, and it's a fundamental necessity for the care and welfare of our horses. Water shortages present a risk to the availability of water to maintain competition surfaces and the welfare of our horses.
We believe that by turning equestrianism into a force for good for the environment and nature, we can seek to gain social licence through a different means than always focusing on welfare. The perception of welfare will be a forever moving object, but being a sport that genuinely does great things for the environment is an absolute. We can do that. If we come together as a community and do the things that White Griffin advocate, we can tell the story of a sport that truly benefits the natural world, which in turn benefits horse welfare. If you guys would like to hear more or understand more about what White Griffin are doing for equestrian sport and sustainability, you can find their details in the show notes. If you are a brand or a company that looks for more advice when it comes to sustainability, then White Griffin are your people to help. They are so knowledgeable and such pioneers when it comes to sustainability in the equestrian space. We are so grateful to have their support of season 3 of This Equestrian Life. Back to the podcast.
For this episode, Miri and I are super excited to be joined by Sasha Hargreaves. Sasha is someone who has been around horses for their entire life and dreamed of being an eventer, and they made that dream a reality, competing up to 4-star internationally. However, recently, Sasha shared on her Instagram that she was quitting the sport with something that she delightfully called Changing My Life Diaries, and she's been sharing updates since then. We really wanted to get on and talk to Sasha about her life with the horses professionally and the things that led up to her decision to actually quit and do something else. Miri and I and friends of ours have had so many conversations with people who have worked with the horses, who haven't worked with horses, and everything in between about changing jobs, changing your life. And so I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation. Sasha, thank you so much for joining us.
No worries at all. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, nice to see you again. I was saying, you obviously haven't met Miri, but I met you. I had the pleasure of doing a course walk with you at Blenheim, and it was really cool. I always learn so much from walking around with riders, but you particularly just seemed so enthusiastic and kind of enamored with your sport, and I think that really shone through. You just came across as such a lovely rider and so open.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind.
Yeah,
you're gonna make her go back to the eventing, Brie, if you say
yeah.
that. You're like, actually, well, yeah. I take it back. I really love it.
I'm going back.
Well, maybe
ironically, that week was a really hard week for me.
Oh, really? I was thinking, I was like, I bet she's going to say it was actually not a very fun week at all.
Well, no, maybe I really almost didn't go.
Oh, bless you. Well, I mean, this is a good place to talk about that. I think let's go back to the beginning to start with. So, what got you into eventing professionally, and how did you start getting into horses?
So, both my parents rode when they were younger. So, my mum did pony club, did all of that. She actually set up a yard herself, not necessarily on the competition side, but more the training and riding side when she was in her younger years. And my dad has family in America who have a dressage yard, so he used to go for summers and ride out there. So they both knew how to ride, and then life happened. They stopped riding, and then when they had kids, they thought it's a good opportunity. We live on the Ridgeway, so it's very bumpy walking anywhere around here, so they decided it's probably easier to lead a pony than push a pusher. So we got a pony which we shared with I think 3 other families,
Wow.
and that was how I got into it. And then I learnt to ride at a riding school, joined pony club, and then when I was 13, my instructor at the time turned around and said, it's not an easy decision if you want to go down the professional route, but if you want to do it, you need to take it seriously and you need to commit and really commit.
At 13, that's that's a big, that's earlier than I would have expected. But I guess that's how those conversations happen, right? Because you have to go up through juniors and...
Yeah, exactly that. It was kind of, I think we were doing a bit of an event plan. I say event plan, I was doing 90 centimetres. I think it was the same year I did my first BE event. So it was very serious, but I was always someone that was quite busy with other sports and academics and trying to juggle every plate. And I think she was just trying to get the point across that for that career, you at a point do have to decide that that's the only plate you're going to try and juggle. So it was at that age I kind of decided that was the route I wanted to go down. And yeah, committed to it from there.
And I guess by starting from such a young age, do you feel like you kind of like it was good, like it was fun and you like enjoyed that? Did you go to the Europeans and stuff when you were, or not necessarily the Europeans, sorry, but did you compete on teams or anything at that age?
Yeah, so I did the Europeans, did the juniors when I was 17 and 18. So I moved on to horses. Actually, as a result of this conversation, I moved on to horses very young. So I moved on to horses at 14 and didn't do any of the pony stuff. But I think that actually kind of helped me because it meant I was in a better position. And it was the same instructor that then sourced the horse that I went on to do Europeans with. And it was one of those, we were not looking for a horse at all. And she went, I've got a client that wants to buy your horse. And in return, I've got a horse that would suit you. So yeah, I did. I was fortunate enough to do 2 years of junior teams. And then COVID hit for my young rider years.
Oh, wow. Oh, wait, so how old are you now, Sasha?
25.
Okay.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
you did you say you were 18 or was it 21 when you first got your yard, where you started doing...
I was 20, so it was the same. Yeah, it was a COVID year as well. I moved in about a week before we went into the first lockdown, which was fun.
God, that must have been really difficult.
Yeah, it wasn't ideal. Although I do say it kind of worked well because it gave me time to settle in without having to also be out competing and be doing everything else. Financially hard, but it was nice to have a few months to just figure everything out. And yeah, I didn't have to pay staff because I didn't have to go anywhere for those few months.
Yeah, right. And was there any point at that age where you were like kind of looking around and being like, oh, what if I still wanted to, I don't know, go to uni or do this or do that? Or were you like, no, this feels right, this is my life, I really want to do it like this?
No, it felt right. I had a place at uni, so that had always, the deal I'd made with my parents was always get good A-levels. And then, I applied for uni. I did it. I deferred for a year, so I had a gap year, but in the gap year I was working to prove that I could make enough money to not go to uni. So I did that, and that was why then 6 months after the end of my gap year was when I moved into the yard. But no, it was very much, I was full, all eyes on that. There was a part of me that slightly felt sad that I wasn't going to uni, but again, don't want to keep talking about COVID, but the COVID years made it better because people at uni weren't exactly having the best time because they weren't even at uni anyway.
What would you have studied had you gone to uni out of interest?
I had a place for business, for business studies. Yeah. So it was business studies or English literature was going to be my second choice, but
that's what I studied.
Was it?
Did you?
Yeah,
I don't use it at all, but I did study.
What are you talking about? Do you want to know who writes all the show notes? Who writes pretty much everything
right.
for the podcast? It's her.
Never
It's not
use
me.
it.
Never use it. Honestly, when I'm highly dyslexic, so I write horses. That's what I do. And so when it comes to like writing stuff for the podcast, it's you every time, Rhi. If you get a fancy email from us, it was her, not me.
It was not you.
But I can see the business in how you're positioned now, and I don't want to skip steps for people who don't know your story, but I can definitely see that side of you coming out, and even in actually how you presented yourself professionally with the eventing. Not every rider comes across that way with the professional website and the email and this and that. So yeah, you really built like a very professional business in those years.
That was the goal.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your eventing career? Because I suppose that's kind of the gap between the being a passionate 20-year-old who this was the best thing ever to where you are now. Like you said about your week. Was it Burley? Did you say Burley? Blenheim, sorry.
Week.
Your week at Blenheim was really hard. Like, do you want to talk a little bit about the ups and downs?
Yeah, of course. So I think it actually was that first 2020, I dislocated my ankle and concussed myself at the start of the year. And
was that
so
riding?
I just fell off training. It was just one of those unfortunate, my foot got caught in the stirrup for a bit of a half a second and that popped out. And then later on that year, I think COVID restrictions lifted. I went to Tweezerdown, which was one of the first ones you could go to. And I was in a really fortunate position. I had 3 horses that were I was ready to campaign at 3-star level. I had my European horse. I had a slightly more experienced horse who had had a couple of years off. And then I had a horse that I had produced myself from a young novice horse. So I was really excited. Went to Tweezerdown with 3 horses and my European horse just wasn't quite himself. The experienced horse did a leg, and the horse that I produced wasn't quite right. And then a week later, he colicked severely, had to go in for colic surgery. And in that process, they picked up that he had a severe heart arrhythmia. So it was a case of getting him through the colic, and then he had to go back in to have his heart basically stopped and restarted. I don't know what the correct term, but they put them back under general and shock them into restarting the heart. So, and then that season, I had to retire my European horse because he got too old. So I went from having 3 competitive horses to having none within a couple of months, which was tough. And it was the first year of doing it on my own and all of that. So that was the first knock. And then you spend time building them back up. And my horse that colicked actually came back incredibly well. And I then had a phenomenal season the year after. I think he came 3rd in the 3 long at Hargreaves and 2nd in the Open Intermediate Championships. And I've stepped up to 4-star and had my first good result at 4-star. So that's the highs. One year was rock bottom, the next year was up there. But in the middle of that all, it was trying to just make the money work. And I was renting a yard and I had a really good deal, but it was a 40-box yard. So to get the good deal, I had to take on all 40 boxes. And I didn't feel that I rented some out and some were always empty, but it was a lot of work. And I had quite a lot, 3 or 4 members of staff to manage. And I was only 21 and a child myself. So that was a lot. And I think it was just that feeling of you work and work and work, and then the horse picks up an injury or something happens, or an owner decides to move their horse, or whatever the situation, the car breaks down, and that's a couple of grand, and you've got to find that from somewhere, and prize money is not going to pay that. And then the Blenheim week was bad, so then the horse that colicked, I got him up to 4-star. I did Blenheim the year before, the year we're talking about, and then I did the 4-star under 25 championships at Bramham in 2023, I think it was, and had a really good result there. Came 3rd, but he wasn't quite right. I didn't think he was quite right, and he had done a leg, and we picked up the leg because he was meant to be at Blenheim, and then my pre-Blenheim run 2 weeks before, again, he wasn't quite right. I did the dressage, he jumped clear in the show jumping and the advanced, but I was like, something's not right. So we didn't run him cross country, and the next day he came up with a leg the size of a golf ball. So it was just that going to Blenheim, my top horse had injured himself, and I was fully aware that my next good horse was 5 and years away from that. And you know how long it takes to produce them, having done it with him, and he was 6, I think, when I got him, and 12 at that point. So having known it was 6 years of hard work to get him there, knowing that that's what you've got to go through every single time, is tough.
Yeah,
that sort of the relentless nature of it, right?
I think that's exactly it. It's one thing after another, and the highs only last for so long, and then you're straight back to reality. I mean, you can have the best result of your career, and you're back to reality the next day, waking up at 6 a.m. and mucking out 20 horses.
It also feels like so much that's outside of your control. Like the injuries, you know, within reason, a lot of those are outside of your control. And one thing I hear when I speak to rider friends of mine is the owner situation is so challenging and so precarious. Like, if you don't have a string of horses, to your point, like, you've got nothing to compete, you've got nothing coming through, and you can have a great set of horses from an amazing owner, and then one day they just turn around and say, actually, I'm going to send them to so and so, and that is just like so gutting for you, and that must have been really hard, especially at that age.
Yeah, it's really hard. And I mean, I was lucky. A lot of the owners that I dealt with were absolutely lovely, and normally it was just a matter of them selling their horses rather than anything else. But there's always experiences with owners that aren't so lovely. And as you say, at that age, I think I did experience a couple of times where people tried to slightly take advantage, and finding that was probably one of the biggest lessons I learned, was how to find my voice, to say, just because I'm young, it doesn't mean I can work for nothing, or I can do any of that type of thing. But that is, and as you say, it's just precarious. You don't know when they could move their horse in a week's time, and that could be one of your biggest earners gone out the yard. And you know that finding owners is such a challenge, particularly now. I think owners are harder and harder to find.
Absolutely. People have far less expendable cash these days, right? And that kind of a thing, you know, competing at that level, you've got to have people that are really invested in the sport as a, you know, they want to support the sport, and they understand that they have to support the sport, they have to support the riders, but it's kind of that like bunny hop system. And if that isn't there, then that's incredibly difficult. I wanted to touch on the fact that you ran a yard of 40 horses. So I have half the number in my care, and I'm well aware of how incredibly stressful and complicated and, you know, difficult that is. And especially at the age you were, like, that must have been very overwhelming, you know, as a big part of it. I mean, did you find that, you know, how did you navigate that? Like,
yeah, it was tough. I think the maximum number that we ever had to care for ourselves was 26, and then the other girl that was in the yard had her own stables. But I think I relied heavily. I found a very good head girl who she actually didn't come as a head girl. She came as a member of staff. And then when my head girl left I had a very experienced head girl who left in the same year that everything went wrong, in 2020. I think it might have been 2021. I internally promoted her to head girl. And that actually worked really well because we were quite similar. We could work together. We both lived on site but separately. And she was very, very good at dealing with the people and the staff, and allowing me to get on with the riding. And actually, I think having that relationship and that, I mean, we're still very, very good friends now, and we've not worked together for a couple of years, but having that person to bounce things off of, and she could always come to me after a rough day and vice versa, was, I think, a lifesaver, because it was exhausting and hard work, and the more horses you have, the more things that can go wrong, and the more horses you have, the more staff you need, and that's a challenge within itself.
It's like a scaling problem, right? You had to scale it up, you have to do a certain number of things, and then you realize that it's really big, and there's I think there's probably a sweet spot somewhere, but it's not a very easy thing to find.
That.
No. Tell me about it.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a bit about how it went wrong? You know, what was the tipping point, maybe? Because it sounds like that's probably, well, I don't know, maybe it isn't. Maybe it was a gradual thing, but yeah.
I think it was a gradual thing, and it wasn't in the same way. So the Brahman 4-star under 25s I talked about, I had probably the most horrible week ever. It shouldn't have been. It should have been career highlight. It was the best result I'd ever got. But I was so unbelievably anxious all week. And there was one comment that was made to me that will stick in my mind forever.
I want to take a moment to thank one of the sponsors of this podcast, Equine Biogenie. So Equine Biogenie I have actually worked with for a number of years now. They are a equine disinfectant company. Now, disinfectant in the equestrian space is quite a long way behind disinfectant in the human world, and often a lot of the commonly found disinfectants on the market are actually incredibly toxic and are not actually safe for the horses or the animals to be around, and they can be quite harmful to the environment because of the runoff down drains and into waterways. Often what we need to be able to do is disinfect stables and put the horses straight back into them, and previously what we'd have to do is disinfect the stables, wash the walls afterwards, for example, because if the horses were coming into contact with it could cause them a lot of damage. Whereas with Equine Biogenie, there's no need for that. You can use it, the horses can utilise that stable straight away, and it is totally safe. You've used this disinfectant, haven't you, Rhi?
Yes, it has been a perfect solution. So Harley and I went to our first ever, we've been to 2 overnight camps this summer for the first time ever, and that meant taking him away from home, putting him in stables that I didn't know, and then having to put him in the stable straight away. And I really knew that I wanted a disinfectant before I put him in new stables, because I'm slightly paranoid, and also I just think it's good practice. And so using Equine Biogenie meant that I could just leave him on the lorry, go spray the stable, spray the bedding, etc., spray if there was any hay or water buckets or whatever, and then he could immediately go into that stable, and I knew that he would be safe, he could eat the hay, he could walk around, and there would be no damage, and also no damage left to that stable as a result of me spraying, or to the environment. So it was a perfect solution, to be honest. I just put a little bit in recycled spray bottles that I've kept from other things, add water when I'm there, and then I'm good to go. It's a great little product.
I think it's amazing as well, because this product has made it into some of the really big vet practices now. Rossdales have carried out their own testing pertaining to Pseudomonas and compared Equine Biogenie against the widely used disinfectants, which shows up to 5 times greater efficacy with 0 toxicity. And so, it's just great to hear that these big vets are on board with this amazing product. If you would like to learn more about what Equine Biogenie do and all of the products that they have on offer, then you can find their details in the show notes, and you can use the discount code that you will find there to get a little discount.
And that was on, I didn't think my horse was 100% on show jumping morning. The vet was telling me to go ahead, the physio was telling me to go ahead, the trainer was telling me to go ahead, and I was like, well, they are the professionals, I'm going to do what they tell me to do. And he passed the trot up, so it was like, okay, well, I'm being told that he's fine. But someone there could see how worried I was and anxious, and they said to me, Sasha, you're going to learn when you get to 4 and 5 star level, the horses are athletes, they're not your pets. And if you've got to separate that emotional connection from them. And I was, that just didn't quite sit right with me. And I completely understand that maybe that is how it is, but I was like, that's not a sport that I necessarily would like to. I very much have a good relationship with my horses, and they mean a lot to me. And I wasn't comfortable with that attitude. And that might have just been one person's attitude, but that comment was made. And after the week where I'd just been stressed the whole time, I was like, that was almost the cherry on top. And I came away from that event, and you got about 30 minutes of feeling brilliant. And then it was like, okay, well, now what? What's next? What's the next thing? We're out with five-year-olds next week at an event, probably in the pouring down rain. Back to reality. So I think at that point, I internally started to just question whether it was right for me. The anxiety I felt, I mean, on the cross-country morning, I don't think I went cross-country until 2:00 in the afternoon, and I had to lock myself in the lorry and just watch like Netflix on my phone all morning, because I knew that if I watched any of the cross-country, I'd just start spiraling. And it's meant to be enjoyable, and it always was enjoyable, and that event just wasn't. And then financially it was tricky, and then my horse picked up his injury, which was then just another knock-on effect. And it was then I actually decided to move out of my yard. I stopped renting, and I went and I worked for a singular owner, who very kindly, she has a small yard, and she had some horses, and then she let me take the horses that I did have with me. And I think it just I never quite just got rolling again. The good
the love
horse
had kind of gone, maybe.
Yeah. I think I was holding on to it. I really wanted it to come back. My good horse that had his injury, he had a year off. We got him back into work. He was ready to have his first jump, and he injured himself in the field and ruptured a fetlock, and it was an irreparable injury, so we had to have him put to sleep. And I think that was kind of the last thing that I was holding on to. And that was last August or last September. And then again, carried on because the job was really nice. I was suddenly working a job where I was actually paid a salary. I got paid holiday. I had nice horses to ride, a really nice place to live, a lovely place to work. But I think it was actually turning 25. I don't know whether you can call it like a quarter-life crisis. But I suddenly realised in conversations with friends and family that I knew that it wasn't going to be what I was doing long term. And the only reason I was carrying on was because there was no reason not to.
It's like a habit.
Yeah. And it was good, and it was very nice, and it was actually quite easy. But I think I realised that at whatever stage I decide to step away, I'm going to need to start at the bottom of a career ladder, because I didn't go to uni and don't have industry experience in anything other than riding horses. And I just thought I didn't have, my best horse was at novice. I didn't have a reason to stay in the sport. So it was kind of like, now seems like the right time to step away and actually build a career that I think will be long-term and know will be long-term.
God, that's so, and thank you for being so open and sharing all of that, because, that's really hard. And I think particularly not just talking about the emotional side with the horses and the financial stuff, but also that comment's very interesting. As Miri and I obviously don't compete at the top level, but we talk about it a lot, both on the podcast and privately. And as you said, I sometimes wonder if some riders get to that top level, look around and sort of go, oh, maybe this isn't totally what I thought it was going to be.
Absolutely. And it's a combination. I've been on some brilliant programs in the year, and I've had talks from some of the top riders in the world, and every single one of them consistently tells you that it's bad more than it's good. And it doesn't suddenly, you don't go to the Olympics and then it gets easier. Like that is just what working with horses is. And if you've got the passion, then absolutely. But I think I realised that I've got other things in my life that I'm wanting to do, and that was no longer the overriding thing.
I think it's that horse first, sport second sport first, horse second balance, that maybe there's a tipping point too. And it sounds like you got to a point where somebody said, no, this is sport first, horse second, and you were like, is it?
That's not how I was brought up.
and it was interesting what you said there, because like I really try and look after the girls that work for me, and the way that we do everything is very much horse first, sport like footwear. So, and that enables us then to have a working environment that feels very like symbiotic and very like peaceful, because we're not trying to do anything that is against what the horse's nature wants. And I think that's where there's this tricky balance at the top of the sport. And I do think some riders do they do manage it. You know, you see them, their horses live out in the field all the time, and they have lovely looking bodies, and everything looks like they come to the trot up and they're like, oh, this is the best day out ever. But there is a balance. And it sounds like, you know, like you're saying, you speak to these top riders and they're like, oh, it's harder than it is good, and it's this and it's hard. It is. And there's a certain sort of, like, you've just got to be really tough. And if you don't want to be that tough, then you can't do it. No, that's it. And that's really very interesting.
Yeah. I think also, I mean, I don't know whether it's too sensitive to talk about, so feel free to cut it out. But I think the falls in the recent years probably shook me more than, I don't know whether they shake other people, but they definitely shook me. And it's a conversation I've always had very openly with my family, possibly a bit strangely, but my family have always asked me and had the conversation with me very much, is it a risk you're willing to take? Like, are you sure it's a risk you're willing to take? And I've always been like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If something awful was to happen to me and I was galloping around the cross country course, I would go happy. And I think, again, it was at Bramham, and I was like, I would not go happy. I'm absolutely terrified. I don't want to leave the start box. And then when these falls and these awful, awful things happen, I think that was probably what then also went, God, imagine, I wouldn't want my family to suffer through that, because I felt like I should carry on, rather than because that's what I'm loving and it's my passion and everything like that.
You know what, Sasha? I think you're going to be giving permission to so many people to be more honest with themselves today.
Oh, I hope so.
Because my goodness me, like, I happen to know one of the people through my partner who lost his wife last year, and like hearing you speak so openly, if there are people out there who are listening and they are like, they're feeling that bit torn, like, gosh, is it worth that? Is it worth that?
Yeah. And I think it just has to be a bit of a thought in there, because it is a high risk sport, and there is that danger. And for my entire life, I'd always said it's worth the risk. And I think, as you say, when it got to that point where I saw a fall happen, and I was like, it's not worth the risk to me. It's not a position I would want to be in. That then there's not a good enough reason for me to carry on doing it.
Well, I imagine your family are very proud of you, and I'm not saying you're super young, you're obviously well established, but to be so proud of yourself for looking around at that moment and being like, oh, actually, these 5 things that I've just considered don't add up for me anymore, especially in equestrianism, where I feel like there's this kind of, as Miri said, you're tough and you don't give up ever, and you keep going and you keep pushing.
You're a horse girl.
You're a horse girl. No. Even though we all know, if we're being super honest, that like, unless you come from a lot of money or a family that has a real base in this, it is so difficult to get to the top of the sport and to stay there. And what was the reaction like from the equestrian community when you announced that you were quitting. I imagine your family
So
were
nice.
great. That's good. Because I saw the comments were really positive and people were really behind you. But I thought, oh gosh, I wonder if behind closed doors people are being like are disappointed
I've not had a single. I mean, there's been some comments like weeks are not in the initial flow. There's been some comments that are just a bit random. That are like, you're an idiot.
I mean, it
why
went
are you
pretty
doing this
viral,
type thing?
so.
But the majority, like, I've had quite a lot of messages of people kind of saying what you said, being like, just, it's so nice to hear because it's not something that is necessarily talked about. And there's almost this weird, as you say, stigma that if you don't give up and you keep going. And I think I tried to be careful. I've given up because it's really hard to not do it. I just said it there, to not use the word give up, because I don't think it is giving up. It's just a change. But I think there is that weird I definitely had put a pressure on myself that it meant that I was giving up and failing a younger version of myself.
And isn't that weird? Because if I chose to leave my job right now, I'm a strategist for an agency. If I chose to go and become, I don't know, have my own coffee shop, I wouldn't say I gave up strategy. Like, that's insane. So you're so right. Why do we use that language? Why did I use that language? Because it's not that at all. It's just a change.
It like denotes a defeat in some way.
Exactly.
Like you were defeated by it, when actually the reality is, I think you're so brave, because to do something from so young and it's all you know, and to be able to make that decision for yourself is actually, it takes a lot of, compassion towards yourself and bravery to do something different, rather than being like, well, this is all I know, this is what I've always done, so this is what I'm always going to do. And I think you said something actually that was a really great like mindset, is like, can I see myself doing this forever? And I often say to people, like, can you see yourself doing what you're doing in 5 years, even if it evolved, even if it if it changed or evolved or something? And if people are like, oh, actually, maybe not, that's important feedback, right? It's important information, I think. And it's great that you took the leap, as such, is maybe a better way of saying than giving up. But so what do you do now, Sasha? What are you doing these days?
So I work for a company called Beyond Weddings. So nothing to do with horses.
Love it.
And do so I'm business development executive there is my role, but marketing, a little bit of sales, and that's the main job. I'm very, very fortunate in that my mum owns the company. So she owns...
I love this.
So she owns a couple of companies. She owns a larger one called Guides to Brides. And the offices are next. They're attached to they're attached to the old stables I used to use when I was at home. So some of the people in the office have seen me through all phases of life. But I've always been involved, and I did some freelance work for her when I needed extra money. And when I came to her, it was very much, she was kind of like, and what do you want to do? I think she's always hoped that I would eventually go into the family business. And it just felt like the right move. I am doing an apprenticeship alongside it to get my actual qualifications. So I'm doing a marketing apprenticeship, so that I have an actual qualification with it. But I've moved back in with my parents, which is strange. And I'm working for my mum. So gone from not seeing them much to seeing them all the time.
I love it.
We were talking about nervous system regulation just before, like in our chat. Me and Rhi were talking about it at the beginning of the podcast. And I bet this has actually been really good for your nervous system. Having run the yard you ran, which I can only imagine was literally like having somebody plug you into the mains on a daily basis. Coming back home and like having your mum make you a cup of tea must be just like the best thing ever.
It's so nice. They went on holiday last week and I was like, what? I have to cook my own dinner again. On earth.
I love it.
It's awful.
But Sasha, I'm a bit older than you. I'm like 8 years older than you, right? And I don't want to be this seem patronising, but you're so young. You have we are all so young. Like people can get so caught up on like, oh, I should have it all figured out. I should know what I'm doing. I should decide when I do my GCSEs or my A levels or whatever, and then that's what I'm gonna do. I've got an apprentice myself. She's 17, and I say to her on a regular basis, if you want to go and do something else after you've done this apprenticeship, I want you to lean wherever you need to go. Like, if you do this for 2 years and then you're like, you know what, I'm going to go to cookery school and I'm going to become a patisserie chef in France. Go for it. I think like we get one trip round, right? Live your damn life. Like my T-shirt, look. Live a little. Live a little.
Perfect.
Yeah, there you go.
But it is exactly that, yeah. Yeah,
but we
exactly
definitely...
that.
I think our generation is much more comfortable with like switching careers than the generation before, and there's much more conversation around. People used to be like, your 20s are the best years of your life, and actually now a lot of us are like, no, they're not. The 20s are when you're just getting stuff wrong, you've got no money, you don't know who you are. Actually, it just gets better and better. And I have to say, you know, I look at my parents. I think my mum listens to the podcast, actually. So if you're listening, mum, shout out to you. My parents are in their 60s. I hope they don't mind me saying that. And they are so cool. Like they go out and they cycle. And every time I call them, they're like on a mountain or at a whiskey tasting in Scotland, or they're just doing cool stuff. And I just feel like life gets better and better. Yeah. And I love that. And I love this era for you.
I think also that comes with retirement, right? People are I'll do it when I retire. And that's what our parents' generation is doing, right? They they work their career, whether they like it or not, and then they retire and then they do all the fun stuff. You can actually do all the fun stuff.
Do both, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it is nice because I think, as you say, there's a weird stigma, but when I talk to every single one of my friends, none of them know what they actually want to do. Literally. A lot of them still live with their parents. And it is I think it's very normal and it's very fine and it's actually really nice.
The way the economy goes these days, you know, it's much harder to live how our parents lived. My parents bought their house for the most unbelievably small volume of money because they were able to. And obviously I know inflation and all those things, but still it's so ridiculous how inflation doesn't reflect the inflation of your salary. Like the two things just nope. So it's just we have to live differently. We can't live the same way that they did. So don't even bother trying, basically.
No, no, exactly.
Yeah. I saw something on your Instagram a while back that I think it must have been a while back because it was badminton, and you said something about how you saw badminton on. I think you might have been watching badminton. To correct me if I'm wrong, and you were like. You were worried, I think, before you watched it that you might have a pang of like, oh, I really wish I was there and I was like coming out the start box. And in this video, you were like, I didn't feel that way at all. I didn't wish I was there at all. And like that must have been really self-affirming to be able to watch it and go, nope,
nope, absolutely nothing. Yeah, it was really nice. And I had a lot of people that I knew, like a couple of people that I did Europeans with were at badminton. And I was like, God, the poor things. And I was like, wait, that's not the right attitude to have for badminton, which is like the pinnacle. And I was like, oh no, hope you're okay.
Yeah.
I just remember thinking, I remember thinking if I ever get there and I get around cross country and get to show jumping, I won't want to go into that arena in front of all those people and attempt to show jump. My nerves can't handle that. I know that I won't handle that. So yeah, that was quite nice.
And do you have horses in your life at the moment? Like how involved is it? Or are you just taking a break?
I've not ridden since I left, which is weird. I've been so busy, I think, catching up on life that you just don't have time to do, like just catching up on seeing people and doing stuff like that. But I have, so the horse I did Europeans on, who retired 5 years ago, he is at home and in the field with my dad's retired hunter, who we've also had for like almost 15 years. I think we've had him. So I feed them, poo pick them, which is really nice.
That's nice.
And I've done a little bit of teaching. I'm kind of doing as and when for the local pony club. but that's all I'm doing at the moment.
Sasha, I've got a question. And I ask everybody this question, and I'm really interested to hear your take on it. And please do take as much time as you need. You don't have to just deliver the answer straight away unless it's really just there for you. Sounds very cryptic, doesn't it? But if you could tell every person in the equestrian world one thing, what would you tell them?
I think it would just be remember the reason why you wanted to do it in the first place. Because I think that gets lost in everything else. And yeah, remember your reason why and keep that in mind with everything you do and every choice. And if it doesn't line anymore, it doesn't line anymore.
Oh boy, the tears I've wanted to cry during this interview. This has been lovely, Sasha. And I so appreciate you being so open and so eloquent with such sensitive topics. You've been awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. And we look forward to hearing more about, how your life unfolds. I'm so exciting.
Very different now, but it's very exciting. Well, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. If people want to keep up to date with your not riding diaries, then where can they find you? Where should people have a look for you?
So Instagram and TikTok, and it's sasha.hargreaves.
Yeah, thank you, Sasha.
No worries, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for listening, guys, and we will see you for next week.
See you next week. Bye.